Hi guys, this is Johnny Pialu, and we are back again for the review of episode 5 of season 1 of Interview with the Vampire. This episode is called A Vile Hunger for Your Hammering Heart, and I think that just plays a big part on these next episodes. Episode 3, I believe that's when Claudia was turned. So these next episodes, 4, 5, and 6 going on into the rest of the season, we really get to see Claudia's character arc come. I don't want to say character arc, but we really see her character development and her being a very young girl when she was turned and how that is impacting her as a vampire, how she's learning. So I feel like just that title in itself, A Vow Hunger for Your Hammering Heart. You know, Claudia's heart is hammering in the sense that she's always battling with herself and what she wants, where she is, what her identity is. And she has this vile hunger, and this vile hunger we'll see later on in the episode. It does become vile in the velocity of it. This hunger to satiate her hunger, just being a vampire, but also just this hunger for her existence and kind of like her purpose. And even though she's not a human anymore, she's still going through that same shift of like an identity crisis. The same thing that Louis went through when he was a vampire. So we open the episode. Louis is feasting on Rashid, and you hear Daniel reading out Claudia's journals. He got Claudia's journals the episode before, and all the entries that he's reading out loud are entries of Claudia recording her victims' last words. They're begging not to die, or they're saying, they have children, they have a family, all those things. So when he's reading it, it sounds so light just to hear him read that out, but it's very dark and eerie just to read someone's last words out, and then you know how viciously that they died. Like they didn't die in their sleep or anything. They were drained of their blood by a vampire. So yeah, Louis is reading Daniel's mind, and Daniel is having these questions about Rashid because Rashid is intriguing him. Mind you, Rashid is like this character in the back that is there with Louis, but he doesn't speak, and he kind of comes off as Louis' servant a little bit. And so now Louis is feasting on him, um, and Rashid is talking, and he's telling that Daniel is pretty much chronicling a suicide. Yeah, chronicling Louis, I guess say ending his life because putting his story out will bring vampires attention, and they're going to be very upset about Louis exposing their identity. So, yeah. So we go back in time. We go back in time to this is after Charlie's death. Claudia is very withdrawn at this time. She is really not even interacting with Louis and Lestat for days and weeks at a time, to the point that Louis thinks she's starving herself. And he's very nervous. He's very concerned about her well being. And Lestat is at the piano, and he's like, if you think she's not out hunting, then pretty much like she's not starving. She's not she's not surviving off of little birds and stuff. Baby girl is out hunting. You just don't see it, and you just don't know it, or you are in denial about it, but she's doing it. And Louis is a bit pissed off with Lestat's response, and he was like, you're the reason why she's in there anyway. So Lestat, he's like, he jumps up from the piano. I guess he kind of feels like, I'm tired of you blaming me for stuff. You and that little girl both getting on my nerves. That's kind of like his energy a little bit. So he goes in there, and they go in her room, and they open her casket or her coffin, and she's not in there. And he's like, whoop de doo, look, she's not even in here. She's out and about. She's not in the house anymore. And so Louis, he's quiet at this point. He don't really have nothing to say. So they see Claudia's journal in her coffin. Lestat picks it up and reads it. Louis is like, don't do that. He's very protective of Claudia. Don't do that. Lestat does it anyway, and he reads the passage, and it's about Claudia writing to herself, asking, "Well, every time she has sex, will the skin grow back? Hymen, will the skin grow back there every time?" And of course, Lestat and Louis are weirded out, but it's like if you wouldn't have invaded that young girl's privacy, you wouldn't have read all of that. So Lestat, she comes home. Well, after they do that, Louis picks up her journal, and I think he just he starts to read it. I think he gets a bit intrigued to see what she has written in there. So Claudia comes home. She sneaks back in, and she opens her coffin. Lestat is in there. He pops out. She tries to run out the room, and Louis finds her, and they're pretty much like, "We caught you. We know you've been lying. We know you've been sneaking out, doing all these things." And so Lestat is pretty much manhandling Claudia. He got her up against the little like her dresser, damn it, with his hand around her neck. It's like right here. And she's looking at Louis like, "You just gonna let him do this to me?" And in that moment, I can see how I can see maybe from Lestat's perspective how Claudia could play like mom against dad or dad against mom. And not that Lestat was not wrong for putting his hand, like, I guess you could try to say like manhandling her a little bit, but he, you could kind of, the way that Claudia kind of called on Louis, it was like, "Mama, help me, get him off of me. You see how he doing me." So, but Louis kind of like is kept quiet because they have read her journal entries, so they know how she feels about both of them, and she has said some stuff about both of them in there, especially Lestat. And so I'm pretty sure they feel some type of way about what she has said. So my notes. Um, so yeah, they feel some type of way about what she has said, and because they read through her journal and she's killed a lot of people. So they confront her. I'm looking at my notes. So they confront her, and she has to admit to what she's been doing. And she's like, "Get out of my room, get out of my room." And she admits that she has killed all these people. And they're like, "Well, where are the bodies? Because you haven't brought them home to put them in the incinerator." That's how they get rid of the bodies, with the incinerator, by burning them. Claudia says that she has buried them out in Chalmette, which is a town. Louis, being from Louisiana, knows that Chalmette is only 3 feet below the sea level. So whenever they have a storm in the Gulf, which they will, because it is New Orleans and they always have a storm, um, Louis was like, "So what are you gonna do then when those bodies wash up?" And those bodies did wash up. There were so many of them, so many that Tom, one of the I know he's a politician. I can't remember his exact role right now, but Tom, one of the politicians that they have done work with in the past, he kind of like, he seems to be one of those ones that ride the fence. Like, he is racist, but he knows how to do business with that side to get what he wants out of it. He knows how to play both sides. So Tom invites them out, and it's under the guise that, he's gonna just talk to them or whatever, but he's really inviting them out to let them know, "Hey, you being watched." Because of all this activity, because a lot of the people that were found came out of the quarter. And so it was revealed that they found 56 bodies. Claudia has killed at least 56 people, almost 60 people. She is a prolific serial killer. I mean, she is a vampire, but she is prolific in her killing. She really is. She take out the Lestat. She don't take out the Louis, and that's so interesting that her and Lestat don't get along. But that's usually how it goes when you're too much alike. So of course they get the warning, and Lestat is able to freeze the room. I think they're in some type of bar, and he makes a scar on Tim's face with the X. I think that's so interesting. Like X marks the spot, kind of like I'm gonna keep my eye on you, and I'm gonna make sure to always put an X on you, so I've marked you, and I always know to come back to you, and if I need to address you. So he's pretty much saying that they done got a tap from, I guess, the city and the state or the federal, whatever it is. So they head back home. Lo and behold, the police are already at that house doing a raid. Claudia let them in, and she is drunk because she has fed on a drunk man. So if you remember what Lestat said back in, see, I think episode 2 when he turned Louis, so 1 or going into 2, you have to be careful in how you pick your I guess pick your victims, because whatever is in their blood, you will have it will impact you. So that's why they say you don't drink the blood of the sick, the blood of the dead, because you yourself will become sick or dead. So she drank the blood of a drunk man, so she's now herself drunk. The police are all up and through there, and they are very like, okay, we don't like what we see. You just leave your daughter by herself with access to illegal spirits. And so they find an incinerator. They're asking them questions. One of them breaks down the door into Claudia's room, which I think is just a. Because when Louis said that's his daughter's room, he was like, "What room is this?" And Louis said, "That's my daughter's room." And he said, "Break it down." It makes me wonder that if Lestat would have said, "That's our daughter's room," would they have broken down the door? Because Lestat is white, and with Louis being black, why would you, if you like it, if you already know there's a child in there, why would you then be like, oh yeah, go in there and break down the child's bedroom door? So Claudia is like playing when he breaks in the door, like she's getting ready for bed, and the officer leaves out, but she's in her room panicking because she has all these trinkets from her kills. Like she's taking little body pieces of each victim as kind of like a trophy. And that was something that Tom had mentioned, that a lot of these people had soft body part pieces of their bodies missing. And Claudia, they pretty much they end up leaving, but they give the vibe that they don't like what they saw. And it's more it's they don't like what they saw with them racially, and also with their relationship, because Louis was like, we'll tell, your pretty much your superior, that y'all came in and raided the house of law abiding citizens. And that's when he says, well, before you do anything like that, you should add another bed to the boudoir. And this is during the 20s, I believe. And so during this time, being homosexual was not only considered to be a sin in the church, but it was also considered to be a crime that you could get up to 5 years. And that is so crazy when you sit and think about it. Like, someone's sexuality could get them criminalized. Like, that is a crime. And I think that just not only about sexuality, but it kind of gives you an idea on how fickle and how kind of like translucent right and wrong is. Because if a lot of people only go by right or wrong being what is law, then what is your real barometer? Because technically this was a law. So you think that's enough to imprison someone for their sexuality? And then I think the history of it was that at first it was fornication. You could be the crime was for fornication, but you would have to prove it. So you would, a lot of times they would have to catch you in the act. So then they changed it to it being a crime against nature. And that's another topic for another day. But the fact that you can pretty much take someone's freedom away due to their sexuality, which will only be present with the people they're having sex with, it's not something that they're going to share with the public unless you can know that about them, but they're not sharing and experiencing their sexuality. I guess depends on how you express it, but that, like I said, another conversation for another day. So they leave and everything, and we get to the part, the police leave. We get to the part where we find there's a man's body on their like living room, dining room table that came out of Claudia's bedroom. So they're pretty much they're scolding her. Um, and Lestat is saying things to her, saying pretty much she is just a anchor on them, bringing them down, all those things. And she's just sitting there. And Lestat is saying to Louis, they're both upset with her. And Lestat is saying to Louis, remember how much happier we were before she came? And Louis was like, we were not happy. Like, don't even play like that. We were not happy. And I think that just also plays into their expectations and their dynamic between each other and their expectations of each other, and also the viewpoints. Because as of right now, this is all through Louis' viewpoint, and he is still very early on in his vampire journey. So, and we've seen so far that it has been a struggle for him. So no, it has not been a peaceful experience for him. This has been traumatic and very a big struggle. So it's not just no that y'all were not happy. Um and Claudia pretty much admits, she reveals that she has been killing young boys because she wants to make a partner for herself. She's trying to make her own vampire because she's saying, Lestat and Louis have each other, but she doesn't have a Lestat. She doesn't have a Louis, and she's trapped in this teenage body. And as she gets older, she will still only be attracted to little boys, or only little boys would want her, or grown nasty men. So I think in her mind she wants to find someone who is along her age, turn them so that they can be in this perpetual kind of puberty area together, so she has this person to navigate this experience in this existence with. Um and she's like, which one of she's getting desperate, not desperate, but I would say maybe her anger and her frustration is coming out, and she's saying like, who would want me, which one of you are gonna fuck me, which is a very crass thing to say in that moment, but you understand that she's saying it as a like through exasperation. And Lestat is like, you're not my type, I like a fuller figure. Like, he take every moment to take a dig. Like, that's what this girl feels insecure about, her physical, and you're gonna say you're not my type, I like a fuller figure, trying to trying to insinuate I like somebody full grown. And that's what the girl is crying about in that moment. Like, Lestat, Lestat is savage. He will stick it to her. And Louis is like, come on, don't be like that. And so when she's saying that she's tried to find and make another vampire, and we see all the bite marks on her arm, Lestat pretty much is like, you would never be able to make another vampire. And she was like, well, at least tell me so I could find more vampires. And he was like, why? Because they're going to chew you up and spit you out anyway. And he said, because you are a mistake, and they will shred you to pieces like you are a little bird. Like, just very deepful, hurtful things to her. Like, just to tear her down even more and kick her while she's down. And that's what Louis was like, shut the fuck up. He was like, the way he came, it was like, don't talk to my baby like that. Do not talk to my baby like that. Will you shut the fuck up? Like, I was so happy when he said that to him in that moment. And that's when Claudia, like, she just goes out and just lets it be known that Lestat wants to keep them kind of like trapped. He not trapped, but just with him. He wants Louis to be all with him. He don't want Claudia to have her own person. And you got two of your own people. And that's when we find out, like, uh-oh, And we see Louis cut his eye at Lestat, like, who is this other person? And that's when Claudia says, "Oh yeah, I've been following you, Uncle Les. You ain't been your careful self. You got a a white girl out in Algiers with a flat no nothing ass. Damn." So Claudia can give it back, and that's when it's revealed that he most definitely is in a full blown relationship with Antoinette, the singer from earlier on in the season, from like episode 3, that he was kind of flaunting around in front of Louis. I think in response to Louis messing with one of his old flings, and also from Louis kind of being resistant to vampirism. So Lestat is like, okay. He said, I've been. Claudia storms off. Lestat is like, I've been entertaining myself. He's trying to smooth talk. Lestat is such a fuck boy in these moments. Like, he trying to smooth talk, like, baby, I got you. Talking about, you know what? I'll kill her soon. You'll kill her soon. Like, that's just your resolve to lying and cheating, and I'll just kill my side chick and we'll be done and move on. Like, no, it's you. The fact you getting a side chick is not the fact that she's here. You brought her here. That's why she's here. Don't act like she walked up here by herself. So Claudia storms off to her bedroom because she's upset. This is a very like like tumultuous moment. And so she's packing up her things. Louis chases after her into her bedroom, and she asked him a good question. She said, "Why didn't you, when you saved me, why didn't you take me to the hospital?" And he was like, "You were barely breathing." But she said, "But I was still breathing. I could have been possibly saved, and I wouldn't have to have this tortured existence. I would possibly be an adult woman now, married and living a normal life that is, set out for you based off society standards." She didn't say that, but it's just she could have just lived a normal life. But now she's a vampire, always at conflict with herself and her existence. And I think in that moment, Louis does realize that he might have thought that he was doing something good to soothe his guilt, to soothe his loss of his humanity and his family. But him trying to soothe himself took something from Claudia, took something from another person, and now they are in this pain because of him. And he's like, "Don't go, don't go," and she leaves. So Claudia has left. Um, we also go back and forth to the present day where Daniel is talking to Louis, and he's like, "Yes, that sounds all good and dandy, but to a human audience, Claudia is still a killer. And you're trying to make her sound as if she didn't get enough hugs and she just needed to be held more, and whoop-de-doo. But she's still a killer. And you see her as your daughter, but once you put this story out, you cannot control how everyone is going to receive Claudia. So you keep wanting to editorialize and change it and kind of make her softer than maybe she might have been. We don't know, because Claudia's not here to tell a story. You can't control that. But also, Claudia is going to be a cash cow. She is a young girl, a young killer girl, like this femme fatale. You don't know where it's going to go. You cannot control it once you put it out. So now that Claudia is gone, Louis and Lestat have to adjust to her being gone. And with her being gone, that really lays bare to how bare their relationship is. And not just how bare, but how much unresolved conflict and how much growing that they need to do for themselves individually. And they're just not in sync right now. And Louis pretty much spends his time moping over Claudia. He's reading. He's starting fights with Lestat just to get a reaction out of him. He's not being receptive. He has stopped having sex with Lestat. No affection, no anything. They are just like roommates at this point. Louis not even cleaning the house no more. It is filthy. It is dirty. It is filthy. And that is also a playback to when Claudia called Lestat out. She said to Louis, Lestat is getting tired of us, Daddy Lou. And she called and she said, we're just the housewife and the mistake. Louis is the housewife there to tend to Lestat, and Claudia is the mistake that he called her. That's how he sees him. That's how he sees them. You know, this housewife, you be at home, cook, clean, fuck me when I want you to, and I'm able to do in whatever I want to do, but you stay right where I want you. So their relationship is fractured, and Louis is trying to call out to Claudia, get her to come home, and she doesn't. So we move to Claudia. She's now at a university. She is, trying to go about her life, figuring things out. And this is where she meets another vampire, Bruce, and she meets him because a white student is harassing her, pretty much saying, you're not supposed to be here. Bruce and Claudia connect, and I don't know if they actually killed old dude. It's kind of implied, but it's kind of not, because he said, "You hungry?" And they kind of have this eye contact, and then we see a fire burning something, so it possibly could have been that boy's body. We don't know. But Bruce gives that he's a good bit older than Claudia. He has that like biker edge to him, but he also gives like steer clear of him. So Claudia is talking to Bruce. They're sitting by the campfire, and he's getting a little close. He's asking questions. She's asking questions, and just kind of getting to know each other. He gives her a book, and it's called Etiquette, and he's telling her that she needs to have more etiquette in her keels. They're being sloppy. That's how he was able to follow her, and just to saying that she needs to have more etiquette as a woman. Of course, she didn't like that. She didn't appreciate that. Like, you don't even know her. It's your first time meeting her, and you're already trying to tell her what she needs to be as a woman. So Claudia gets up, and she's like, Bruce, you're getting too close. Bruce ends up breaking Claudia's leg, and it's implied that he takes advantage of her, that he, sexually assaults her. He assaults her. And we also learned that Louis took those pages out. Claudia wrote about the assault. Louis took those pages out because that's something else he doesn't want to come out about Claudia. He feels as if that is not protecting her. He doesn't want people to know about something so bad that happened to her. And once again, Daniel was like, yes, yeah, I get that, but you still cannot take bits and pieces out, because number one, this is not, yes, you're telling your story, but this is also Claudia's story. And number two, if you are editing what you're saying, then it questions everything else that you're saying, because what else have you taken out or misrepresented if you took that out? So they're going back and forth, and Louis getting upset with what Daniel is saying, so much so that he triggers a Parkinson episode in Daniel, and he's just shaking, and you can tell like the shaking is becoming like painful, like it's make it stop. And Rashid has to come over and touch Louis, and he gets like this when Claudia, when talking about Claudia, Daniel goes up there and slaps the shit out of Louis. And I understand, but that was bold, because I was like, oh, you just gonna get up and slap that man. I guess that's where him and Louis are at. He can slap Louis' ass and not worry about having to get bit. So we also transition back to another scene. Louis is in the bed. They got rats in their house. And then we see they got rats in their house because one is scurrying across the bed. Louis grabs it and feeds on it. So I'm like, if Louis and Lestat got rats, they got roaches. Louis and Lestat got rats. They got rats and roaches in that house. Um, and he's reading over some deaths at universities that have been reported, and he's for sure that it's Claudia. He is so for sure it is Claudia. And Lestat is like, yeah, it could be her, but I'm the one that's here. I'm a full grown adult with the right appendages. That was another dig at Claudia. Another dig at Claudia. I'm a full grown adult. And then with all the right appendages, like I read that is I'm here, full grown, full body, good dick, and you acting like I'm not. And and then we see him look out the window. Who is he looking at? Antoinette. She it's like a woman silhouette, but it's Antoinette's ass. Yeah, the same woman you said you was gonna kill because Louis found out you was cheating on him with her. Um, Louis gets a call, and it's from Grace, his sister. He meets her at a gravesite, and she is shocked by his appearance because Grace is obviously older. She has some gray in her hair. Louis looks the same. And Grace is looking at him like, "Who are you?" And that's when she says, "You're not my Louis." And she's just reminiscing about memories that they had. She was like, "This is not my brother who I ran and played with. This is not my brother who, like, she's confused by him." And it pans to the tombstone, and it shows Louis's mom, and it says Louis's name. Louis DuPont de Lac from 1878, I think, to 1930. And it shows their mom died in 1923. And this is Grace's final goodbye to Louis, letting him know that she's moving. She's leaving Louisiana because, mind you, this is the Great Depression, crash and everything. Her husband was able to find a job somewhere, I think she said in Chicago, I could be wrong, and that's where they're moving. And she said she had to do this for her to be able to let go. And so essentially, she's buried Louis. She's now said Louis is dead to her. But I don't see it as in a violent, mean way. I really do see it as she you have to understand she's still on the side of humanity. She does not understand Louis' new existence. She doesn't. She doesn't know what it is. She just knows that when this white man, Lestat, came to town, her brother took up a relationship with him, and he has changed ever since. And there has been changes that have been violent, and there have been no explanation for it. How do you take that? But when Grace left Louis, she touched his hand, told him goodbye, and kissed his cheek. That to me let me know that Grace still loved Louis, even though she, I think, maybe feared him and didn't know what he was. And even for her to embrace him and do a skin to skin, even though it's something brief like a cheek, I think to me that lets, as the audience, know that Grace probably didn't want to let go of Louis, but she knew she had to let go of Louis. They had to let go of each other because Louis wouldn't have been able to exist in her world as a vampire. And she wouldn't have been able to exist in his world as a human. It kind of makes me wonder that if circumstances were different, like if Grace wasn't married, if she didn't have a family, would she have been more, it almost kind of makes me think, would Louis have, if he was given the opportunity, would he have tried to turn Grace so that he would have Grace with him? Because it always felt like him and Grace were very, very close. And they were kind of each other's saving grace in a way. And even when she didn't understand him, even when she was, even the whole thing with when he left the baby and he was scared that he was going to eat the baby, she you could just see like she's scared. She doesn't know what to think. And so she, in her mind, she has to do the safest choice for her family. And that is letting Louis go. And we see him be devastated by this. And that's when Claudia, we see Claudia again, and her character is letting us know that she's been following Louis and Lestat for some years since she's been gone. And this moment, she finally realized her purpose and why they turned her. And it was so that she could be Louis's grace, that she could be literally his grace and his sister Grace. And so, because of that, she returns back home. And it's at this point we learn Claudia has been gone for 7 years. And she embraces Louis, and the way that Louis sees her, you could just see that he is shocked in his whole demeanor. It's like, oh my God, my baby came home. Like he slowly approaches her and he so gently cradles her head in his, like in his chest. Like his love for Claudia is so ever parent, and him missing her is just so ever parent. It moves to Lestat, and he changes the record player, and that screenshot, that image of his face, I love it, because it's like this bitch is enraged. You know, like he is just simmering under the surface. And he's like, hi Claudia, like long time no see. I see you came back. And she's like, yeah, I came back. And he's mocking her about her time away and where she's been. And she reveals that she's been reading a lot of books about vampires. She's been exploring some things. And he was like, oh, so you came back just to fuck off a little bit more before you, just to do your laundry before you went back out? Like trying to, oh, so you just came back for a little check-in. And then she says, no, I came back to get Louis. And that's when the start kind of go like, oh hell no, bitch, you ain't come back to get my man. Like you just see the shift in him, like, oh hell no, no, you didn't. And so Louis kind of looks over like, and she said she came back to get Louis and to take Louis with her. I've noticed that sometimes Claudia says Louis. I guess you know the French pronunciation of it. And Lestat is mocking her, and he's like, oh, so you went and read about some vampires, now you ready to take on the world. And he was like, vampires are vicious. And the look in her face, and he's like, oh, but you've learned that already, implying to her interaction with Bruce, even though he doesn't say that, because that would have been the negative interaction that she's had. And so he's kind of like taunting her, picking up books, and she's talking to Louis like out loud and also telepathically, and she's saying to him, come with me, Louis. And she was like, I thought I could live without you, but I can't. So that lets Louis know she heard all the times he was calling out to her, and she tried to be strong, but she needed her daddy. She needed like her mother figure. She needed Louis the same way he needs her, the same way he needs Grace. He just lost Grace. And to hear Claudia and to see her come back after he's been begging and moping all these years, and to hear her say, Daddy Lou, I thought I could live without you, but I can't. And that's why I came back. I know that's pulling on his heartstrings. And she's telling him, don't stay here. Don't stay in this box. He's keeping you in this box, and he's keeping you trapped. He doesn't want us to know anything. He wants us to be bound to him. And then he brings up Charlie. He says, I never asked you, how does Charlie taste? Did he taste like the love you'll never know? God diggity damn. Lestat. This man is just, when I tell you, when he will stick it to Claudia's ass, he will stick it to Claudia. But it's like she knows and she anticipates it, and she's like, I'm not gonna fall. Like she's staying strong. And he's mocking her. He's like, well, if we didn't save you, you would have just had an inconsequential little life. Like you just would have been one of many. And that's when Louis finally speaks up and said, yeah, and we took that from her. He's understanding that they took just being able to live a boring life and be a nobody. They took that option away from Claudia. And Lestat kind of looks at him like, I don't need you. I don't need you co-signing her. And we see Louis turn his body to Claudia as if he's about to start walking towards her. And Lestat is like, Louis. He's screaming his name. After all these nights, I done been with you. After all these days, you've been moping around. Pretty much all these years that I have been. And the first sight of her, you ready to pick up and leave? He attacks Claudia. He like, round. Of course, Louis is get the fuck off of her. And he goes after Lestat and they start fighting. This is the big fight. They tear this house up. I mean, really beating each other like the beast that they are. And this is when we learn, not learn, but it's when you realize, like, yes, you see two human men fighting, but then we also realize with the strength of a vampire, like they are beating each other. Like Lestat is over Louis' body, just beating him and beating him and beating him. And Claudia is behind him, like, stop, get off of him. And they're fighting. And then you hear Claudia trying to come up the steps. And you hear Lestat saying, I don't want to keep fighting you like this. Stop, Sherry. He's saying stop. Stop, love. He's saying stop to Louis. Claudia is crying. And Louis hears Claudia crying. And he's telling her, it's okay. They're going to stop. It's okay. And then we hear this big boom. Lestat is on top of Louis again, comes through the wall. Somehow they end up like on the outside of the house through like this little corridor area. And they're walking. Well, he's dragging Louis by his neck. He has his nails in Louis' neck and he's bloodied. And Claudia's running after and she's saying, stop, Uncle Les. It's me you want. And he drags Louis up to where he's standing beside him. And he looks at Claudia and he said, it was never you. And that can be tied back to it was never you, like you were never important enough, or it was never you that the problems are more than you. And Lestat bites Louis and ascends into the sky. We learn that this motherfucker can fly. He can fly. He can fly. We know that Louis is scared because he's like, mind you, he's holding on to Lestat. He's being held on by Lestat's mouth being in his neck because Louis like grabbing at Lestat trying to get like, what the hell is going on? He's like up through the stratosphere. He grabs Louis and that's when he's like, you can hear it in his voice, he's crying. And he said, I have waited for you to love me. Just say it. Say that you'll never love me. Say that you'll never love me the way that I loved you because I've waited. I've waited to hear you tell me you love me and you won't ever say it. So just say that you'll never love me. And we know that Lestat wants to be loved. He said his greatest fear is being lonely and being abandoned. And by Louis withdrawing from him, I'm pretty sure, and to see that Louis just so easily opened back up to Claudia and was ready to go and leave again. And when the first time that Louis threatened to leave their home, it was during the whole town melee when he found Claudia. And then when you are threatening to leave our home again, you're threatening to leave with Claudia. But yet I've been here this whole time and you have yet to tell me you love me. And I'm assuming that's how he's thinking of it. And Louis like, let me go. And Lestat says, yes, anything for you. Louis still would not give him the satisfaction of saying it. Because I don't think Louis doesn't love Lestat. He really is in a purgatory of his identity. He's in a purgatory of how he feels about Lestat, because Lestat is essentially his murderer, but at the same time his maker, at the same time his lover. And we in our human minds can't comprehend that, because the fact that someone is your murderer, you're no longer alive to even continue to love them. So the fact that you are even of essence to love them, even after they took your life and gave you another one, it's a mind fuck. So he lets Louis go and he drops down to the earth. He falls through the brick ceiling and everything outside in their, like, I guess corridor or whatever. Claudia is there and she's Daddy Lou. She's crying over him, and you see like Louis's body like pretty much broken. And then Lestat just descends down and she's looking at him. She's confused, angry, scared. And it's like, it's and Lestat doesn't say anything. Even the music comes a little bit lighter at that scene. And it really, you really leave that episode like, what the fuck? You really do. So that's the end of the episode. So if you did enjoy my analysis of it, or you have any questions or anything that I didn't pick up on, put it in the comments. Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, come back for another one, or like this one, or watch the other ones, and we'll be back with our review for episode 6. Bye.